The Resolute drifted through the Omega sector, her hull bearing the scars of a decade of service. Captain Isabella Martinez stood at the bridge's viewport, watching distant stars glimmer against the void. To an untrained eye, the Earth vessel might have appeared outdated, her angular hull lacking the sleek curves of modern ships, her armor showing patches of different materials where repairs had been made. "Captain, we're picking up multiple signatures approaching from Vector 317, Lieutenant James Sullivan announced from his sensor station, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Classification?" Martins asked, though she already suspected the answer. The Omega sector had become increasingly contested in recent months, with various alien species laying claim to its resource-rich asteroids. "Ziraxin vessels, ma'am. 3 cruisers, and what appears to be their flagship." Sullivan's voice carried a note of concern. The Ziraxins were known for their technological superiority and their disdain for what they considered lesser species. Chief Engineer Raj Patel's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, all systems are nominal, though I doubt our friends out there would believe that." There was a hint of amusement in his tone. Patel had spent years modifying the Resolute's systems in ways that weren't exactly standard or visible to outside observers. The first transmission from the Ziraxian fleet came exactly as Martinez had expected. A holographic figure materialized on the bridge, tall, ethereal, with crystalline features that caught and reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. High Commander Vexler of the Ziraxian Coalition spoke with the characteristic arrogance of his species. "Earth vessel, you have entered contested space. While we admire your courage in venturing this far with such primitive equipment, we must insist you withdraw immediately." The commander's translucent lips curved in what might have been a smile. "We would hate to see your antiquated systems fail catastrophically in deep space." Martinez exchanged a knowing look with her tactical officer, Commander Diane Wong. They'd encountered this attitude before, the assumption that Earth technology was inherently inferior, that humanity was simply playing at being a spacefaring species. "High Commander," Martinez responded, keeping her tone professional, "the Resolute is conducting legitimate patrol operations in international space. We acknowledge your presence, but will continue our mission as planned." The Ziraxian's crystalline features hardened. "Perhaps you misunderstand. Your vessel's sensor profile suggests shield capabilities barely adequate for meteoroid defense. Your propulsion system appears to be using refined hydrogen fuel, practically ancient technology. We are merely concerned for your safety." Martinez noticed Wong's slight smirk. The Ziraxian's scans were showing exactly what Patel's modifications were designed to display, a picture of an outdated, barely space-worthy vessel. They couldn't detect the experimental quantum shields, or the antimatter reactor hidden behind layers of sensor-dampening materials. "Your concern is noted, High Commander. Will there be anything else?" The Ziraxian's face showed a flash of annoyance at her dismissive tone. "Very well, but understand that we will be monitoring your movements closely. We wouldn't want your museum piece to require rescue in our sector." As the hologram faded, Martinez turned to her bridge crew. "Status report." "They're maintaining formation at 200,000 kilometers, Sullivan reported. "Their weapons are powered but not targeted." "Yet," Wong added quietly. Martinez nodded, settling into her command chair. "Raj, how are our ancient systems holding up?" "Oh, just terrible, Captain," Patel replied with obvious sarcasm. "These poor old engines could give out any minute. Of course, the quantum core is running at 98% efficiency, and the new shield harmonics are perfect. They're seeing exactly what we want them to see." Good, because I have a feeling our friends out there won't be content with just watching for long. Martinez studied the tactical display, noting how the Zyraxian vessels had positioned themselves. It was a standard containment formation. They were preparing to box the Resolute in if necessary. "Orders, Captain," Wong asked, her hand hovering over the tactical controls. "For now, we maintain course and speed. Let them think we're struggling to keep this old girl running." Martinez allowed herself a small smile. "But have the countermeasures ready. Something tells me we're going to need to educate our Zyraxian friends about the dangers of underestimating primitive technology." The bridge crew returned to their duties, each hiding small smiles of their own. They'd all served long enough to know that humanity's greatest advantage often lay in being underestimated. The Resolute might not have the flowing lines and crystalline architecture of Zyraxian ships, but she had something better. A crew that had learned to turn every perceived weakness into a strength. As the hours passed, Martinez watched the Zyraxian ships shadow their movement, waiting for the moment when curiosity or arrogance would get the better of them. It was only a matter of time before they'd try to prove their superiority, and when they did, they'd learn why Earth ships were built to last. The next 12 hours aboard the Resolute were a masterclass in patience. Captain Martinez watched as the Zyraxian vessels grew increasingly bold, their formation tightening around her ship like a noose. They were testing boundaries, waiting for any sign of weakness. Another message incoming from the Zyraxian flagship, Sullivan announced, his tone weary from the constant surveillance. "Let me guess, more concerns about our well-being." Martinez's voice carried a hint of amusement. The past hours had brought a steady stream of condescending messages, each more transparent than the last. High Commander Vexthor's holographic form materialized once again, his crystalline features catching the bridge's lighting. "Captain Martinez, our scans indicate your port shield generator is showing signs of stress. Perhaps you should power down non-essential systems before there's a catastrophic failure." In engineering, Raj Patel nearly choked on his coffee. The stress readings were actually a carefully calibrated false signature he designed himself. "Captain," he commented over the private channel, "should I tell them our shields are currently running at triple their supposed capacity?" "That won't be necessary, Raj," Martinez replied softly before addressing the Zyraxian commander. "We appreciate your ongoing concern, High Commander. Our engineers are monitoring the situation." "Of course they are." Vexthor's tone dripped with condescension. "Though I doubt their limited expertise can properly manage such delicate systems. We could provide technical assistance." "Bridge." Wong's sharp voice cut through the conversation. Multiple small craft launching from the Zyraxian vessels. Martinez's expression hardened. "High Commander, would you care to explain why your fleet is launching interceptors?" "Merely a training exercise, Captain. Though if your sensors can even detect our shadowcraft, I'm impressed. They are quite advanced technology." The hologram smiled, revealing teeth that seemed carved from crystal. Martinez watched as 12 Zyraxian interceptors moved into attack formation. They were beautiful machines. Their hulls seemed to bend light itself, making them appear almost ethereal. But beauty wouldn't save them from what was coming. "Commander Wong, status of our stressed shields." "Quantum barriers at full strength, Captain. Patel's masking field is still showing them exactly what they expect to see." Martinez nodded, then turned back to the hologram. "High Commander, I'm going to ask only once. Recall your interceptors." "Or what, Captain? Will you threaten us with your primitive weapons?" "Perhaps fire some nuclear missiles." Vexthor laughed, the sound like chiming crystals. We're merely conducting exercises. Though if your vessel happens to be caught in our training area." The threat hung in the air as the hologram faded. Martinez waited 3 heartbeats before speaking. "Reg, I think it's time we showed them some of your modifications." Tactical. Tracking status. All 12 interceptors marked. Wong reported crisply. "They're moving to surround us in a sphere formation. Standard Zeraxian harassment pattern." "Perfect." Martinez leaned forward in her chair. "Reg, activate the gravitic pulse arrays." Deep within the Resolute's hull, systems that hadn't appeared on any scan suddenly hummed to life. Patel had adapted Zeraxian gravity technology, refined it, and turned it into something entirely new. The interceptors wouldn't know what hit them. "Gravitic arrays charged," Patel reported, his fingers dancing across his controls. "Ready on your mark." The interceptors drew closer, their formation tightening. They were within 5,000 kilometers now, well within range. Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Execute. The Resolute's hull briefly shimmered as invisible waves of concentrated gravitational force burst outward in a perfectly calculated sphere. The effect on the Zeraxian interceptors was immediate and devastating. Their elegant shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, did nothing against the gravitational distortion. All 12 craft suddenly found themselves being pulled in multiple directions at once. Multiple targets showing structural stress. Wong reported with professional detachment. Their engines are unable to compensate. On the tactical display, the interceptors spun helplessly, their formations shattered. Several of them were now streaming debris from cracked hulls, their crystalline architecture proving beautiful but brittle under the gravitational assault. The main viewer lit up as High Commander Vexthor's hologram appeared again, his crystalline features now sharp with anger. "What? What have you done? This is impossible. Your ship couldn't possibly." "High Commander," Martinez cut him off, her voice steel-wrapped in silk. "I suggest you recover your pilots quickly. Their life support systems appear to be failing, and we wouldn't want any accidents in contested space, would we?" The Zeraxian fleet burst into action, recovery vessels launching to collect their stricken interceptors. Martinez noticed their main ships had backed off considerably, no longer confident in their assumed superiority. "Captain," Patel's voice held a note of pride, "should I power up the antimatter cascade? Just in case they're thinking of trying anything else." "Not yet, Raj. Let's give them time to reconsider their position." Martinez watched as the last interceptor was recovered. "Though I have a feeling they might need one more lesson before this is over." The bridge crew maintained their positions, each knowing that this was only the beginning. The Zeraxians wouldn't take this humiliation lightly, their pride wouldn't allow it. But now they knew that the Resolute wasn't the primitive vessel they'd assumed. As if reading her thoughts, Wong spoke up. "They're regrouping, Captain. All 4 main ships are adjusting formation. I don't think they're done with us yet." "Good," Martinez replied, settling back in her chair. "Because we're just getting started. Raj, begin warming up all systems. No more hiding. Let's show them exactly what humanity's primitive technology can do." The Resolute hummed beneath them, decades of human innovation and ingenuity waiting to be unleashed. The real battle was about to begin. The Zeraxian response came with all the subtlety of a supernova. Their 4 main ships moved in perfect synchronization, their crystalline hulls blazing with activated weapon systems. High Commander Vexthor's next transmission held none of his previous condescension, only cold fury. "You have committed an act of war against the Zeraxian coalition," his holographic form declared. "Your deception ends now." Martinez remained seated, projecting calm despite the escalating situation. Deception, High Commander. We simply defended ourselves against an unprovoked attack during your training exercise. Target locks detected. Sullivan called out. All 4 vessels have weapons charged. You hide advanced technology behind a facade of primitive systems, Vexthor snarled. This violation of trust will not stand. Trust. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Was it trust that led you to surround and harass what you thought was an inferior vessel? To launch fighters against what you believed was a defenseless ship? The Zyraxian commander's crystalline features fractured into a grimace. You will surrender your vessel for inspection, or we will take it by force. All hands, battle stations. Martinez commanded as the hologram faded. Rage, time to show them what we've really got. With pleasure, Captain. Petal's voice held barely contained excitement. Quantum shields at maximum. Bringing antimatter cascade online. The Resolute's hull began to pulse with a deep blue glow as hidden systems emerged from their camouflage. Paddles shifted, revealing weapon ports that had been invisible moments before. The ship's energy signature, previously masked to appear weak and outdated, now blazed across the electromagnetic spectrum. Multiple missile launches detected, Wong reported. Zyraxian crystal-tipped warheads, at least 30 incoming. Deploy countermeasures, Martinez ordered. Reg, initiate the prismatic defense screen. Another of Petal's innovations sprang to life. The space around the Resolute shimmered as thousands of microscopic crystalline fragments, salvaged from previous Zyraxian encounters, formed a rotating sphere around the ship. As the incoming missiles approached, the screen lit up. Prismatic screen functioning perfectly, Petal reported with satisfaction. Their own crystal technology makes excellent defensive material when properly repurposed. The missiles slammed into the crystal screen, but instead of detonating, their energy was caught and reflected back through the crystalline network. The space around the Resolute became a dazzling display of redirected power, each missile's energy being channeled and dispersed harmlessly. Impossible. Vexthor's voice boomed across the command channel. Those are classified defense crystals. Classified. Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Or just previously misunderstood. Humanity may be young among the stars, High Commander, but we learn quickly. The Zyraxian ships began moving into an attack formation, their superior numbers spreading out to surround the Resolute. Their crystalline hulls pulsed with energy as they prepared their main weapon systems. They're charging their solar lance arrays, Wong announced. All ships coordinating for a simultaneous strike. Martinez nodded. This was the Zyraxians' favorite tactic. Overwhelming force from multiple angles. Reg, is the quantum manifold ready? Charged and waiting, Captain. Though I should mention this will be its first full-power combat test. No time like the present. Martinez straightened in her chair. All hands, brace for quantum manipulation. The Zyraxian ships fired in perfect unison, their solar lances sending seething beams of concentrated stellar energy toward the Resolute. For a moment, the human vessel seemed to be engulfed in blinding light. Quantum manifold engaging. Petal shouted. Field stabilization at 97%. The Resolute's response defied conventional physics. The quantum manifold, Patel's masterpiece of human innovation, didn't just absorb or deflect the incoming energy, it altered the very nature of space around the ship. The solar lance beams curved and twisted, their paths bending impossibly before being redirected back toward their sources. Direct hits on 2 Zyraxian vessels. Wong reported, unable to keep the amazement from her voice. Their shields are failing. Through the viewport, Martinez watched as two of the crystalline ships reeled from their own redirected energy, their beautiful hulls cracking under the strain. The other two ships quickly ceased fire, clearly reassessing their tactics. "Status report," Martinez called out. "Quantum manifold holding stable," Patel responded. "Though we'll need about 3 minutes before we can attempt another full redirection." "Minor hull stress from the manipulation," Sullivan added, "but all systems remaining within acceptable parameters." "Captain," Wong's voice turned urgent, "the damaged Zeraxian vessels are falling back, but the other two are moving to flank us. They're preparing something big. Energy readings are off the charts." Martinez studied the tactical display, noting the new formation. The Zeraxians were adapting, learning. They wouldn't underestimate the Resolute again, which meant the real fight was just beginning. "All hands," she announced, her voice carrying through the ship. "This is the moment we've trained for. These next few minutes will show the galaxy that humanity's strength lies not in the age of our technology, but in how we use it." The Resolute's crew responded with focused determination, each person at their station knowing that they were about to make history. The ship hummed with power, decades of human ingenuity preparing to face off against one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. "Raj," Martinez called, "what other surprises do we have ready?" Patel's grin was audible in his voice. "Oh, Captain, you're going to love what comes next." The two remaining Zeraxian vessels moved with lethal grace, their crystalline hulls now pulsing with a deep violet energy that none of the Resolute's crew had seen before. "New energy signature detected," Sullivan reported, his fingers flying over his console. "They're channeling power through their crystal matrices in a way I've never seen." "Raj," Martinez queried, knowing her chief engineer would already be analyzing the data. "Fascinating," Patel muttered. "They're using their entire hull as one massive energy conduit. If I'm reading this correctly, they're preparing to generate a quantum resonance wave." Which means they're done playing nice, Captain. A quantum resonance wave could theoretically tear apart any ship at the molecular level. Martinez's jaw tightened. "Countermeasures. Already on it." Patel's voice held that special tone he got when facing an engineering challenge. "Remember that experimental phase shift system we installed last month? The one you said might turn us all inside out if it failed?" "That's the one. Well, now's probably a good time to test it." Wong's voice cut through their exchange. Energy spike, they're firing. The space between the ships seemed to ripple as the Zeraxian vessels released their attack. The quantum resonance wave manifested as a visible distortion, warping the very fabric of space as it approached the Resolute. "Phase shift initiating," Patel announced. "Everyone hold on to your molecules." The Resolute's hull began to shimmer, its very structure seeming to flicker in and out of normal space. As the resonance wave struck, instead of tearing the ship apart, it passed through them as if they weren't there. "Phase shift holding." Patel's excitement was palpable. "We're existing just slightly out of sync with normal space-time. Their attack literally can't touch us." Through the viewport, Martinez watched the Zeraxian commanders' holographic faces appear, their crystalline features showing clear shock at the Resolute's continued existence. "Impossible." Vexthor's voice cracked with disbelief. "No ship could survive that attack." "You're right," Martinez replied calmly. "No ship in normal space could. Fortunately, we're currently about half a microsecond out of phase with reality." She allowed herself a small smile. Human innovation at its finest. "Status of the phase shift," she asked Patel through the private channel. Stable for now, but we can't maintain it for long. The power drain is enormous. How long until we can return fire? Give me 30 seconds to realign the antimatter cascade. When we shift back to normal space, we'll have one shot at this. Martinez nodded, turning her attention back to the tactical display. The Zeraxian ships were regrouping, their hulls already charging for another attack. Warm target solutions. Ready, Captain. Their shield configuration is complex, but I've identified weak points where the crystal matrices intersect. Time's up, Peto called out. Phase shift collapsing in 3, 2, 1. The Resolute snapped back into normal space, its hull now crackling with contained antimatter energy. Before the Zeraxians could react, Wong's fingers danced across her tactical console. Antimatter cascade firing. The Resolute's response wasn't the crude nuclear weapons the Zeraxians had expected from primitive humans. Instead, a precisely calibrated stream of antimatter particles, contained within a quantum containment field, lanced out toward the enemy vessels. When it struck their crystalline hulls, the effect was devastating. The antimatter stream interfaced with their crystal matrices, creating a cascade of annihilation reactions that spread through their structure like cracks in ice. Direct hits, Wong reported. Their crystal matrices are destabilizing. The Zeraxian ships began to break apart, their beautiful crystalline structures shattering under the atomic-level assault. Emergency escape pods launched from their hulls as their crews abandoned ship. Hold fire, Martinez ordered. Let them evacuate. As they watched the Zeraxian crews flee their dying vessels, Sullivan spoke up. Captain, I'm detecting multiple new signatures entering the sector. More Zeraxian ships. Martinez nodded, unsurprised. How many? 7 vessels, Captain. Larger than the ones we just engaged. Before Martinez could respond, a new holographic figure appeared on the bridge. This one was older, their crystalline features more complex and refined than Vexithar's. I am Grand Admiral Kazara of the Zeraxian High Command, the figure announced. We have monitored this engagement with great interest. Martinez straightened in her chair. Grand Admiral, if you are here to continue this fight. No, Captain Martinez, Kazara interrupted, raising a crystalline hand. We are here to prevent further misunderstandings. The Admiral's features shifted in what might have been respect. It seems we have much to learn about humanity's capabilities. The aftermath of the battle unfolded in ways none of the Resolute's crew had anticipated. As rescue operations for the Zeraxian crews continued, Grand Admiral Kazara's flagship took up position alongside the Earth vessel, not in a threatening stance, but in what appeared to be a protective formation. Your ship's capabilities are remarkable, Kazara's holographic form stated, studying the bridge with new interest. We had dismissed reports of human technological advancement as exaggerations. Clearly, this was an error in judgment. Martinez noted how different Kazara's tone was from Vexithar's earlier condescension. The Resolute represents humanity's approach to space exploration, Admiral. We build on what works, adapt what doesn't, and never stop innovating. Chief Engineer Patel. Kazara turned to address Reg directly through the holographic link. Your modifications to crystal matrix technology are particularly intriguing. Our scientists had never considered using quantum phase variants in such a way. Patel, who had joined them on the bridge, tried to hide his pride. Sometimes a fresh perspective helps, Admiral. We may be newer to space travel, but humans have a long history of looking at old problems in new ways. Indeed, The Admiral's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. Our preliminary analysis suggests that several of your innovations could revolutionize our own defensive systems. Perhaps there is much we could learn from each other. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Are you proposing an exchange of technology, Admiral? I am proposing something more significant, Captain. Kizara's form seemed to straighten. The Zeraxian High Command has authorized me to extend an offer of formal diplomatic relations with Earth. This incident has revised our assessment of humanity's place among the stars. The bridge crew exchanged glances. This was more than just a victory in battle. It was a fundamental shift in how one of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations viewed humanity. Additionally, Kizara continued, we would be honored if the Resolute and her crew would participate in a joint technical exchange program. Your unconventional approaches could benefit both our peoples. Commander Wong couldn't suppress a small laugh. Unconventional. That's one way to put it. We prefer creative, Petal added with a grin. Martinez stood, addressing the Admiral directly. We'll relay your offer to Earth Command, Admiral. But speaking for my crew, we'd be interested in learning more about your technology as well. Today proved that neither of our species has a monopoly on innovation. Well said, Captain. Kizara's hologram nodded. Perhaps this incident, while regrettable in its violence, will mark the beginning of a more enlightened relationship between our peoples. As the diplomatic discussions continued, Lieutenant Sullivan monitored the rescue operations. Last escape pod recovered by the Zeraxian fleet, Captain. All survivors accounted for. Martinez nodded, then turned back to Kizara. Admiral, what will happen to Commander Vexler and his crew? They will face review for their actions, Kizara replied. But perhaps their greatest punishment will be living with the knowledge that they so severely underestimated an inferior species. The Admiral's features shifted again. Though I suspect this lesson will benefit our entire civilization. Hours later, as the Zeraxian fleet prepared to escort the Resolute back to Earth space, Martinez stood in engineering with Petal, surveying the systems that had turned the tide of battle. You know what this means, Reg? She asked, watching him fine-tune the quantum manifold. Every modification, every innovation you've made, they're all going to be studied and documented now. No more keeping them secret. Patel smiled, his hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. Good, because I've got about a dozen more ideas I've been wanting to test. And now. He gestured to the Zeraxian ships visible through the viewport. Now we've got some new friends to help us push the boundaries even further. Just promise me one thing, Martinez said, preparing to return to the bridge. The next time you install an experimental system that might turn us inside out, maybe give me a little more warning. Where's the fun in that, Captain? Patel laughed. Besides, the best innovations come from necessity. Today proved that. As the Resolute moved into formation with the Zeraxian fleet, her outdated hull now bearing the scars of victory, Martinez reflected on how quickly things had changed. In a matter of hours, they'd gone from being dismissed as primitive to being respected as equals, or perhaps more than equals. The stars stretched before them, holding new possibilities, new challenges, and new opportunities for humanity to prove itself. The Resolute had shown the galaxy that appearances could be deceiving, that innovation knew no boundaries, and that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe was simply refusing to be underestimated. As they set course for Earth, Martinez knew that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their technology or their weapons. It was in their endless capacity to adapt, innovate, and surprise. The Resolute's victory would echo through the stars, carrying a simple but powerful message. Never judge a species by its ship's hull, for within might lie wonders beyond imagination. End of story.